My name is Wayne Thompson. I live in New York, to be exact, in Amityville, New York. And I am the owner of a system technology business where we offer a solution or we build technology solutions for enterprises all across the country.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you taking this time to talk with me about your experience in reading Seven Exits. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Can you start by just kind of talking about your overall experience from reading it?
My experience was extremely positive. There's some things in the book that really jumps out at you. And there's some things that you start to be able to relate to as you start to read through the book. It was interesting because there's things that you don't think about, like silence or secrecy. There's things that you bring up in the book that as you start to read through it, you're starting to say, huh, is that me? Or do I fit in that? And you start to evaluate your sense of who you are, your upbringing, your family, your attitude, everything that you do through the lens in which you're writing the book. So for me, what was interesting was just it's an evaluation of me as I'm reading the book, as I went through the book. And I thought that was very interesting because there's some stuff that I highlighted that I'm like, all right, I'm good with that in myself. And then there's other things I'm like, huh, am I good with that in myself? And then there's just some things where you're like, you know what? There's some things I need to go address with myself. So you went through these different phases and stages as you're going through the book. And I think that's what makes this book such an interesting read because you're doing this evaluation in real time as you're going through the book.
So talk about comparing that to other types of self-help book, because my intention was to have the book do exactly what you said, which is have people evaluate and look at these rims of their lives. And so where I see it is different. And so I'm asking you, I guess, to confirm or validate that or tell me where I missed the mark. Where I see it is different is that many self-help books tell you what to do versus show you who you are.
Yes, it's very interesting because I had this conversation, and it was this week. I was talking to an author who I'm very familiar with, and we were talking actually about self-help book, and I touched a little bit on this book. And one of the things we talked about was in the genre of self-help. Uh, there's great stories and there's great information. However, when you're done with it, you're somewhat motivated by the stories you hear. But what you also realize is a lot of the stories, which are similar to stories you've heard in the past, you don't necessarily relate as well to. So they're great stories to know and to learn about, uh, but it's a story and it's great. And it gives you these great why you need to do it. And it leaves you somewhat motivated. But it doesn't give you two things, I believe, which is what this book does in a tremendous way. It doesn't give you that ability to stop and reflect back on yourself, which I think is exactly what this book does, and find out where are you in your process of development. And I think the other thing that most self-help book doesn't do a good job of is tell you how to do the thing. So like I could tell you a great story and motivate you and tell you how that I overcame and I did it, but I never went in deep dive into the process of you using that story to evaluate this is exactly where I'm at. And then now, how do I get to where you got to that next step? And that's the gap that's, I believe, has always been missing in self-help book. And I think this helped to bridge that gap.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that validation. So it's nice when you hear it and see it. So there are seven exits or
Yes.
rims that I say trap you in a limited life. Did you have a favorite one or one that resonated more deeply with you?
So I went through at first, I think when me and you first had a conversation, I was halfway through the book, and I'm looking down at the book because I had some stuff written around this. So when we went through, we kind of talked through what we believe were some um, of where I'm at. But as I read through the rest of the book, and I start to look at the secrecy piece of it, that piece really, really start to resonate with me. So here's the thing. So if you look at me, my own personal experiences, I'm very disciplined. I have goals. I am very disciplined in what I'm doing. I'm focused on what I am doing. And that is a great thing. But you tend to carry all this other baggage that you don't necessarily address because you're so looking forward to kind of where you want to go or how you want to get to where you want to go. And you're highly focused on that. But then there's things that are baggage that you don't necessarily address, and they become what I would say hooks that pulls you from even getting to that great future discipline that you want to get to. So I think when I got to, and I forgot where secrecy was, when I got to that point in the book, those were like what I would say, aha. You know, you get that aha moment where it starts to really binds you in or pull you in. And I think that's really where my biggest aha moments come. There's many aha moments as I went through, whether it's being hyper defensive, of positions of places where you are, where you have some relationships that you have to address. But I think the secrecy one, because so many of us, especially in the African American families, we have so many secrets that we carry all the time and we don't address them and don't make sure that we're healed from them as we continue our journey forward.
Thank you. I appreciate you for sharing that part of the reading journey with me. And having said that, did it feel scary to read Seven Exits, or did it feel freeing?
It didn't feel scary. It feels more freeing, but what it did, it felt it's hard to describe. It's not necessarily as much freeing as it provided clarity.
Mm.
Um, so and I guess clarity does lead to freedom, but at first, the first instinct was clarity. It was thought of, huh, and then it was resolution to freedom. So it went through almost these four stages. And as I'm thinking about it now, it was like those four stages. You get to that point of, okay, clarity, meaning now I understand certain things. Now I'm interpreting certain things. And then now I can address that so that way I can get to that freedom. So that's how it felt. It took you through different stages. And that's how it worked for me.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So, who would you recommend Seven Exits to?
Every one of my family members and yours.
For sure,
No,
mine. For sure, mine.
here's the thing. I think anyone can read this book. It is classified as a self-help book. It can also be classified as a motivational book. It can also be classified in the realm of it's personal development for the individual. Um, but I think this goes across a broader spectrum. It is a family help book. It is the person who have gone through some sense of abuse and is trying to find answers. It's anyone who is looking for self-discovery, so to speak. And I think that's much broader than just self-help. I think it cuts across all of us.
All right. And could you share anything that you notice you're doing differently as a result of reading Seven Exits?
I am more conscious of my ego. um, it's it's I try never to be an egotistical person. and I don't believe I am, and I don't believe, but I am more conscious because as you read, as I said, the hyper defense piece of it, which was around the first chapter, really resonated as I came out of the book because it hits you right there. And I think when me and you first talked, you had this line about this is the one time to be self-centered. And at first, my thing was, do I want to go beyond this line? And that line came up so early in the book. At that point, I'm like, not that type of person. But it makes me start to think after I got through the entire hyper defensive ego chapter to be very, very cognizant of that. And those are things that I am very aware of. I'm also very, very aware, and I think I always were aware of how people feel as we interact with them, but I think I'm even more hypersensitive to it.
Well,
And
thank you.
also, am I really empowering myself and empowering those around us? Uh, Empowerment is a word I love. So the fact that this book is centered around that is a tremendous, tremendous thing.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, I appreciate you. Any last words that you would give to the audience to encourage them to read Seven Exits?
Well, I will use your words because I did pull this out as a quote that I have. I have a quote wall, and I pull this out and I attribute it to you actually, and it is around that self-centered statement where you talk about empowerment is radical because it starts with something unexpected, self-centeredness. Um, Even though that line at first, when you first read it, because it's your opening line, you're like, hmm. As you went through the book, as I went through the book and got to the end of the book, I actually came back and read that line. And part of the reason why I came back to read that line is because now that I've been through all the exits and I've read through everything, I wanted to come back and validate that statement because it was the opening statement. So I took that statement and I put it on my quote wall because I think it was appropriate. So I think everyone should start there, read, and come back and validate against that statement.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I love that. I really appreciate your time and checking in about how that's going. And nothing is more important than for an author to hear someone validate their words and the usefulness of it. So I really appreciate your time and your validation of Seven Exits. Thank you.
Absolutely, you're more than welcome.